So today I want to talk about the worst hiring advice I have ever heard. Now, as a recruiting agency owner for NewConfig, I own NewConfig. We are about a $1.5 million search firm based in Philadelphia. I have 9 employees. We hire between 70 to 100 people a year. And I go through a lot of bad advice from hiring managers, from job seekers, and it's my role as a consultant for the job seekers and the hiring managers to set them straight and get them off this horrible path that they have in their head, this ideology of the job search or for hiring, both. So today I'm going to talk about 2 bad things that job seekers do and 3 bad things hiring managers do, because this channel is geared for both hiring managers and job seekers. So first, start with hiring managers. One of the worst advice I've ever heard for hiring managers is we need to hire fast. Hiring fast means you hire dumb, you hire horrible people, and that means you're gonna fire them fast too. Hire fast, fire fast. And that is the worst way of hiring. The best practice is hire slowly, fire fast. But when you hire fast, you fire fast too, because the person is not a fit. Most of the time, when you hire fast, you don't check the references, you don't check the criminal background, you don't check if they met their quota, you don't make sure that they're competent for the job. You go through one interview and you hire them. Now, it can work and you might get lucky, but that is not the best way to hire. It's the worst way to hire. So definitely don't hire fast. Hire slowly. Go through at least 2 interviews, do a reference check, do a background check, do a drug test. You hire slowly. Make sure that the person is a fit. This is a developer role, give them a coding challenge. If this is an investment banking role, give them technical questions. Check their IQ. If it's a sales role, talk to their references, check their quota. Definitely do not hire fast. I definitely don't recommend it. All right, the second thing you don't do, this is now for job seekers. There's no such thing for job seekers as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So don't fret about it. Don't stress about it. If you don't get the job, guess what? You could get the next job. It's not the end of the world. Looking for a job is a game of numbers. So the worst advice I heard parents give their newly minted college graduates is, if you don't get this job, it's over. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is just the beginning. The job search, it takes a long time. You have to apply to 300 to 400 roles. You need to get at least 15 interviews in the first round, at least 5 in second round. Then maybe you get an offer. So it is not something that can happen right away. And if you don't get one job, it's not the end of the world. Don't cry about it. Don't switch careers. There's no such thing as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in the job search. Yes, you might not work for that job, for that company, but you can work for their competitor or their other competitor or the third competitor. We don't live in a monopoly state or in a communist state where the government is the only employer. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of employers. If you don't get that job, you might be competent and have the skills for another job. And if you don't, you can learn the skills, you can get the training, and you can keep interviewing. That's horrible advice I heard. There's no such thing as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in the job search. It's not over if you don't get the job. I want to mention about this for job seekers is the worst advice I've seen people get, and I've seen recruiters actually give this, which is even worse, is do not counter. Oh, you might lose the job. That is horrible advice. You are leaving money on the table. I've been a recruiter and owner of a staffing agency, search firm, headhunting firm for 12 years. I've seen a offer pulled once for someone that countered on job offer. So I definitely recommend always counter. Okay, you shouldn't counter 50%. If they offer you 50,000, you shouldn't ask for another 25 grand, but you should all ask for at least another 10%, another 5 grand. It's normal to ask for another 10% of the offer. So I definitely recommend you counter. Don't listen to the horrible advice that if you counter, you might lose the job. We've had have helped over 70 to 100 people a year get jobs, and the vast majority of them counter. And guess what? If the employer doesn't have the money, they'll tell you, but they're not going to pull the offer from you just because you counter. It's horrible advice for job seekers. Not always, but most of the time counter. I know there's a lot of situations where they tell you that's all the money they have, but in most situations you could counter and ask for at least another 10%. Now let's go to point 4, and this is again back to hiring manager. Horrible, worst advice I hear. Just post ads. Guess what? Ads only work 50% of the time, and they are a very passive way of looking for candidates. Just posting ads, you're just waiting for people to come to you, and they may never come. The best candidates might be passive job seekers. They are happy with their job, and unless a recruiter convinces them to apply for the job, you might never get that candidate. So just posting ads doesn't work 50% of the time, and many of the applicants you get are active job seekers, which is fine, but a lot of great candidates are passive job seekers, and you won't get them from just posting ads. I don't recommend just posting ads. I recommend recruiting and doing searches and looking for candidates through various databases, and that costs money. You gotta buy LinkedIn. That costs $7,000 per license, around $6,500 if you negotiate well. $6,000 for a Dice license, $3,000 for an Indeed license, $2,000 to $3,000 for a Career Builder license, about $2,000 to $3,000 for a ZipRecruiter license. All of that costs money. Costs you about at least $20,000 to $30,000 per license. Let's say 20 grand if you add them all up. And then you have to buy more Indeed contacts, more LinkedIn mails. That costs you even more money. That goes up to $30,000. But guess what? You need to spend that money to get the applicants that are great. And then the biggest investment is the time. You have to invest the time in actually doing the search, reaching out to those candidates through those databases, LinkedIn, Monster, Career Builder, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Dice. You have to reach out to candidates. And if you don't have the time, hire a recruiter. Or if you want a cheaper option, work with a staffing agency like NewConfig. That's the worst advice I heard, that ads are the best way of finding candidates. It's one of the ways, but it's definitely not the best. The 5th point of advice that I hear that is horrible from hiring managers and for hiring managers is we just have our own internal HR team. We don't work with recruiting agencies. Horrible advice. Really bad advice. Really bad thinking in my view. Why? Because if you think of a day in the life of an HR manager or an HR specialist, HR generalist, they have to onboard people. They have to offboard people, fire people. They have to deal with compliance issues. They have to deal with HR issues, arguments that come up. They have to deal with benefits. And then they have to deal with recruiting. Recruiting is probably number 6 or 7 on their list. So recruiting is not on the top of their list. And they're probably recruiting 5 to 10 roles. The average company, maybe 3 to 5, maybe 10, maybe 20 roles. They might have 2 or 3 HR generalists. So that means they don't have the time to do recruiting. And all they have the time to do is just post ads. And like I said, posting ads might work 50% of the time, but it won't get you the best applicants. It won't get you the best candidates. Just relying on your HR department is the worst way to go. It could work, but working with staffing agencies to supplement your needs like NewConfig is the best way to go. You pay for the best service. We find you candidates you don't even know existed. That's the value of working with NewConfig. We could put 3 or 4 recruiters on one search, one job, while recruiters inside firms, HR generalists, are working on 5 roles and with just 1 recruiter. The total opposite in ratio. So that's why we find the best people. Oh, and we have a lot better databases. We have all those 6 databases plus our own proprietary database. While those internal recruiters have maybe 1 database, maybe LinkedIn, maybe they have Indeed. So that is the best way to find talent, and that's to work with a staffing agency. And the worst advice is we have our own HR department is horrible. Don't work with recruiting firms. We have our own HR department. Well, you'll get bad candidates. You'll get the worst candidates when you do that. Your competitor will definitely beat you out for talent. That's for sure. So those are the 5 worst things I've heard in terms of advice for hiring managers and for job seekers. Thanks for watching. I hope this was useful, and stay tuned for the next video.